Growing up, I'd always been a fan of comedy, and I was always watching specials.
I just started, I was like 17 years old, and everybody I knew was playing in a band at the time, was mostly punk rock stuff.
I actually went to Pittsburgh, and I met Ralphie May, and he's like my comedic hero.
So one day I just said, you know, can I tell some jokes? You mind if I go up there and tell some jokes after the band's done? They're like, yeah, go for it.
And it was always something that, like, in the back of my mind, I always wanted to try to do, but like for being in Lubbock, there really wasn't an opportunity.
I was just telling him that I always wanted to do it, and I know he had a million people tell him that, so he told me to just try it.
So I go up there, and I just start doing jokes. I just do a bunch of dumb one-liners and just really wacky stuff. And it just kind of grew from there, and people just started like recognizing me as somebody that did jokes and did comedy. And it just kind of evolved from there, and I would even go on in between bands, which was hilarious because one band, they'd be tearing down their drum set, and I'd be up there trying to do jokes. All the cymbals and stuff are crashing in the background, and the next band is setting up. You know, Valentine's Day is coming up, right? Who's excited about that? Yeah. She doesn't look excited at all. I know I'm not, because Valentine's Day is rough, man, especially if you're a guy. Like, for example, you guys know what I'm talking about. Last year, the day before Valentine's Day, I had $300 in my wallet, right? Guess how much money I had in my wallet the day after Valentine's Day? Still $300. God, I'm lonely, so lonely.
I've tried it to where I've written out the whole joke completely, all the pause breaks and everything. And when I do that, it just kind of, it feels too rigid, and so I usually won't do well in it. So if I leave a little room to where I can work around, then I tend to do better that way. I still get nervous. I get nervous before a show. Even to this day, sometimes I get extremely nervous, but as soon as I step on stage, it just all disappears.
My first night, I was so nervous, which is crazy because in college I majored in communication studies, so I'm just in front of crowds all the time, you know, in front of 300 people talking. And I really don't get nervous in front of people, but I was pretty nervous, but it went pretty good.
Well, what I heard from a lot of people whenever we're doing these shows is like they're pretty excited about, like, they're just like, oh, we didn't even know this was happening and stuff, and it's something new and different.
This guy got in contact with me, Jared Jack, and he told me about this open mic that they're starting. And apparently it was a group of students from Texas Tech wanted to do some comedy stuff. So they started doing an open mic at Jake's back room. Now we have Backstage and the recovery room also. So now, where before, when I was doing Chuckleheads, it was once a month, now we have 2 to 3 per week, which is really good because it gives you a lot of chance to work on new material. And since I've been doing it for so long and I barely met these guys like a year and a half ago, I can bring back really old material and try and polish it off, or if I have an old joke I forgot about, I might find it somewhere like in an old notebook and be like, oh yeah, that's a good one, I'm gonna tell that next week.
And we've got a lot of girls in town that are doing comedy too, which is really nice. Like, it's something you don't see a lot of. Like, it's especially like especially in this area and stuff, where you get to have like women go up there and just like go out there and kill.
I'm using more one-liners just because at open mics, I mean, the most I've ever got is 12 minutes, usually getting 5 to 10. So I try to get as much as I can in. I talk really fast, so I don't really have time for a lot of stories.
One time I specifically wrote all these really, really bad jokes. And so I wore a white dress shirt, and beforehand I had all these peeled tomatoes, and I secretly handed out these peeled tomatoes to all these people in the audience, and I had like 5 or 6 cans of peeled tomatoes. And I wrote these terrible, terrible jokes on note cards, and I made sure that I did not memorize any of the jokes. And so I stood next to the mic, and I held the cards like this close to my face, and I was like mumbling these terrible jokes into the mic. And the gag was that the crowd would start throwing these tomatoes at me. But they were supposed to wait till the end. The cue word was waka waka waka, like Fozzie Bear from the Muppets. That was the cue to start throwing the tomatoes. But some people forgot what the cue was, so in the middle of the set, all of a sudden it was like, I just started getting hit with tomatoes. And then other people were like, oh, are we supposed to throw them already? So then they started throwing them. And then some people waited till the end, so the finale was, you know, what did the triplets do at the walkathon? I was like, waka, 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 and I just got pelted with all these tomatoes. And I was just like covered in all these stains and just all over my face, and it was hilarious. I always like doing just weird, different stuff like that.
I've had ones where I haven't done well at all. I went to Chicago and did an open mic there, and I got no laughs, and then came back. But I'm just like, when you have those moments where you have the worst set ever, you know that it's over with and you know you can go back out there and do it again because you have those good ones that balance out the bad ones.
Yeah, it can be tough sometimes. It's kind of something that you get used to as you do it for longer. You kind of get used to it. You kind of play with the crowd more and more. You get more comfortable playing with the crowd. But sometimes things get shuffled around. Sometimes you improv. Sometimes you get heckled. You loosen up, basically. You get used to it. You loosen up and you're able to... You can become flexible is what it is. You become more flexible and you learn how to deal with things better.
Well, you start out on Tuesdays at Jake's Sports Bar on 50th Street at 9 o'clock, and that's open mic. Anyone can come do it. And then Wednesday, same thing. It's at the Baymont Inn about 9:30 at the recovery room on the second floor. And then on Thursdays is probably the biggest show at Backstage, and that starts at around 9 o'clock too. And depending on how many comics, you have to sign up on Facebook, but it's really easy. We'll let you go on stage too. And also, about once a month right now, Backstage is having a comic come in as well.